So I just want to talk to you today a little bit about the special housing areas and the opportunities and challenges that we've found around those. I really want to talk to you about and set the scene about our housing challenge. Basically, Auckland is in a housing crisis. It was first identified quite a while back through the Auckland Plan, and the Housing Action Plan in 2012 came out of that, and that plan identified that we were at least 20 to 30,000 shortfall of new dwellings, and this was confirmed by the government in their Housing Affordability Report. So, as you can see, the International Demographia Report and Survey has ranked Auckland 347 out of 360 cities in terms of affordability. Not great. And our housing ranked severely unaffordable for the 10th year in a row. So again, not a great story. We've actually got multiple housing challenges. We've got a lack of choice, as has been talked by previous speakers. We've got poor quality houses, we've got unhealthy houses, they're overcrowded as well. And we've also got a big story around declining ownership and affordability. So, what did we do around this? Basically, out of that challenge and out of that crisis has come the Housing Accord. This is a formal partnership that Auckland Council has signed with the government, and it applies in that period until the unitary plan becomes operative in late 2016. As part of this Housing Accord, affordability has been deemed to be a key component. The Accord is based on the premise that supply is a huge part in the driver around affordability, and it gives us targets that we're going to deliver for the 3 years over the Accord. So we've got 39,000 houses that we're going to houses and sites that we're hoping to have consented within the 3 years. That's 9,000 in the first year, 13,000 in the second year, and 17,000 in the third year. So, also in response to the housing crisis in Auckland is the Housing Accords and Special Housing Areas Act legislation, which was promoted or established in late 2013 as well. Now, the purpose of this legislation is to enhance housing affordability by facilitating an increase in land and housing supply in certain regions and areas that have an identified housing problem. When it was first set up, it was only Auckland who had signed an accord and was using this legislation, but now a number of other cities and regions have also joined the ranks of areas with housing affordability issues, Tauranga, Wellington, Christchurch, to name a few. So I just want to go a little bit through the SHA provisions. They are quite similar to the RMA, but I think I need to make it quite clear they're RMA provisions with a tweak, and in some cases it's quite a big tweak. When we make a decision under the Housing Accord and Special Housing Area Act legislation, or SHA as we lovingly call it in the Housing Project Office, the weighting of SHA has the most, the purpose of the SHA has the most weighting when you're making a decision. So that's, is it going to enhance housing affordability by increasing the supply of housing? We then look at Part 2 of the RMA, the Unitary Plan, MFE Urban Design Protocols. Some of the easy or some of the different things and the big tweaks are around timeframes and the ability to actually change the provisions of the unitary plan. So if someone comes in, they're in a special housing area and they want to change it to a live zoning, we can actually change the unitary plan. We call it a plan variation, and it has to be done and dusted within 130 working days. Pretty fast. We can also do concurrent plan variations and consents or qualifying development applications together, so you can do your plan variation and your bulk earthworks and maybe even your first stage of your housing development. Notification is limited to adjacent owners and infrastructure providers only, so there is no public notification. The presumption is on non-notification under SHA. And appeals are very limited. You can only appeal a development that's over 3 stories, so even plan variations you can't appeal. I guess the main thing I haven't really emphasised here is that the Housing Accord and the SHA legislation have given us the ability to use the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan provisions as if they're operative. So we're actually using them right now. Just a little bit about the Housing Project Office, which was set up by Auckland Council in the response to the Housing Accord and the SHA legislation. Basically, the Housing Project Office is a one-stop shop for applicants. It deals with consenting, master planning, infrastructure and policy all in one place. We have in our office representatives from Auckland Transport, Water Care, our Stormwater Unit, and also people from central government, from the Ministry of Business and Innovation and Employment, Housing New Zealand as well. We can do integrated plan changes, resource consents and building consents. We go from woe to go, so you come in and with your consent, and you don't see the last of us until you've actually got your building consent, and we have a portal into the building consent department through Bob and Stephen here. Obviously we can't do the building consents ourselves, we're not an accredited building consent authority, but we work very closely with the building consent people in council. We also integrate closely with, as I said, government service providers such as education and health. We also deal with the Forward Land and Infrastructure Program, which is basically driving the integration of our land use and infrastructure decisions. So now in over 30 years, we're all getting in one space and we're all aligned. We also deal with the Housing Action Plan and continuing to implement that. And I guess the big thing in terms of consenting, we're a collaborative, front-loaded, no surprises place. You come to us and we actually want to talk with you, find out what you want to do, what are the outcomes you desire, and we're there to try and assist you to make that happen. Once you come in with a consent, hopefully all the issues are sorted and we can consent fairly quickly. So I'll just talk a little bit about special housing areas. Anyone can ask for a special housing area. And these are the criteria that are used. These have been decided by our governing body, and this is what we look at to work out whether or not an area should become a special housing area. So infrastructure availability and readiness, that is the key and critical component that we need to look at. Every part of SHA says if you don't have the infrastructure there, you can't consent it. If you don't have the infrastructure there, you can't become a special housing area. I don't mean it has to actually be there right there and now, but it has to be able to be put in pretty quickly. We look at landowner views, we look at local board views, quite a few rounds of consultation with our local boards. We look at the demand for housing. Is there actually a demand to have housing in that area? We look at iwi views, we look at the location. Is it a good location? Is it going to serve its purpose? Is there actually a demand to build? Is there a builder or a developer who's actually ready to build in that area? And we also look at affordability. That's a huge component. Is the affordability criteria going to be met? So I'll just talk a little bit about our 63 SHAs. We have 22 of those have been approved both by Council and Cabinet. 41 have been recommended by Council and I understand are going to Cabinet tomorrow for their sign-off. So hopefully we'll end up with a total of 63 SHAs. Yields for these groups of SHAs is expected to be about 600 to 900 sites and dwellings a year, and between 1,000 and 1,400 sites and dwellings a year for the second batch. And the third batch is, I understand, even more than that, but I haven't actually got the figures here. But I guess the comment is the types and locations of SHAs that the areas that Council is making into SHAs is really evolving as we work towards taking into account, people's requests for SHAs, as well as looking at more strategically where do we want housing to happen. So in the last tranche of SHAs, we've actually got 6 strategic areas, which are larger areas, not just a piece of land that's been identified by a developer, and they're in areas that we think would be good to have housing happen. As you can see, there's quite a spread across the region as well. So this is just a little bit about our pipeline. Unfortunately, it's not taken from any real data like Alison has. This is information that we've gathered by talking to the consents business as usual people, looking at local area plans, discussions with developers and so forth. So what we're trying to show here is the pipeline of work that's coming. Now in the yellow, that is what's going to be happening in our consents area, our business as usual. So the resource consents and building consents people, that's what they're developing, that's what they're going to be delivering. The brownie coloured below is where the special housing area tranches come in. So, and they're expected to, as you can see, play an increasingly important role in delivering our housing targets. And this is really the inverse of the last slide. It's just showing you exactly what the special housing areas are going to develop or deliver over the years. As you can see, there's a peak in 2016 and 17, but they will keep going in for at least 10 to 12 years, the expected supply. Yeah. And this is just a little snapshot. This is actually taken out of our 6-monthly monitoring report that was just recently produced, just to show that things are starting to gear up within the 22 SHAs. Activity is increasing as expected, though it's yet to really impact on our headline figures. Business as usual and building consents are still delivering on that. But we are working with customers on over 18 qualifying development pre-applications. We've got 22 consents either approved or in progress, which would deliver over 300 homes. And we've got 18 master planning pre-applications underway, which are probably going to turn into at least 10 plan variations, with at least, I think, probably 3 or 4 lodging by next month. So things are starting to happen. As probably a bit of a longer lag time than we expected in terms of getting development underway, but now it is starting to pick up. And just talking about Tranche 4, Tranche 3 isn't even confirmed yet, but we're already working on Tranche 4. That's 21 strategic areas we're looking at in direct requests that have been deferred from Tranche 3, and there's another smaller group of additional direct requests as well that we're looking at. We're hoping to get to Council's governing body meeting on the 28th of August with Tranche 4, and thereafter to the Auckland Development Committee, to the Auckland Development Committee before then. So we do expect a smaller number of SHAs than the previous tranches, but actually from what I'm hearing, that might not quite be the case. Just want to talk a little bit about our master planning process. As you are aware, there is opportunity to turn future urban zones into live zones. So big swathes of what's yellow in the proposed Auckland unitary plan can become a live zoning. And we're concerned that it's not just about delivering houses. Obviously it is, that's our predominant focus, but we're also very focused on delivering entire neighbourhoods and quality areas and communities that people want to live in. So we do use a collaborative master planning process. We work very closely with the applicant to get that whole context sorted, so that it's not just the site that they're developing is focused on, but the context into which they're going. There's a big emphasis on high quality urban design as part of that process, and we do look at our social infrastructure, such as, do we need new schools, does it need a new library, where's opportunity for small retail. It's also considered along with the hard civil engineering, the pipes in the ground. And here's just a brief one of our SHAs. We call it the Huapai Triangle. They're quite a way down the track with their master planning, but just give you a brief snapshot of the things that we kind of have to deal with in these processes. We have to deal with multiple owners, so it's not just one landowner, it's multiple owners all wanting to maximise the best for their piece of land. We're often working in the absence of wider structure planning, so not all the spatial planning has been done in these areas. It is a comprehensive master planning process though, and we have to look at the transport implications. Infrastructure funding is a biggie, working out how that's going to happen. We're using development agreements, and at the end of the day a plan variation is required. I thought I'd just talk a little bit about working with the unitary plan. That's been one of the real highlights for me and for my team. We've found it's one of the challenges as well as a highlight. We've had a few challenges in the Housing Project Office. I mean, I think the one thing is that everything is new. We're working with a new plan, we're working with new legislation, we're working in a new office, and we're kind of working in a new manner as well. So, but anyway, working with the unitary plan and some of the feedback and comments we've had from developers, one of the big things we've found is that it does give increased density opportunities. And this has been really well received by developers who are putting, developments into special housing areas. And we've found that because they can actually get the density they want without any arguments or having to get extra consents, they're actually very willing to talk about urban design and making really good quality outcomes for their buildings and their communities. So that's been really enlightening for us, and really actually. One of the things we've found is it's a whole combination of controls in the unitary plan which actually allow and incentivise that density. So it's not just the density, but there's also incentives. If you have an increased density, you can have more building coverage and that kind of thing, which has been actually quite well received. I think the other thing I just thought I'd mention is parking maximums. It seems to have gone down a treat. I don't know. There may be people, obviously everyone's got their own idea around it, but it's been a very positive reception so far about parking maximums and the ability to do larger density developments and apartments without worrying too much about where you're going to get all that car parking. So that's gone down well. Water sensitive design, there's been a bit of debate around this with our developers. A bit more of an emphasis on on-site attenuation and use of devices like rain gardens and swales and so forth. So a bit of debate around that, so I just thought that would be interesting. And also our sustainability provisions and universal access. So if you're doing any more than 5 houses in a SHA or a development, you need to either meet the Homestar 6 criteria or do a consent to meet sustainability provisions. So you'd have to do more than what the Building Act requires. Been generally positively received, and most people are embracing it and see it as quite a good selling point, to be honest. Universal access, that's another one where if you're doing so many houses, you need to make sure that they are, the corridors and passageways and so forth are wider so that there is universal access. So those are some of the little things that are a bit different, and people have had to get their head around and say, well, if I'm going to work under the unitary plan, these are these things I need to do. And so far they've been quite well received. And just talk a little bit about affordability. Affordability is not the affordability rules that are in the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan, though what we're doing is the affordability criteria are set out in the order of councils for each special housing area, and that order of council will set out the percentage of the dwellings that must be affordable. And it's generally 10% for relative affordability and 5% for retained affordability. Now, relative affordability is that you build a house that meets the price point, i.e. it's no more than 75% of the Auckland median house price, which at this point in time, the Auckland median house price as at September last year, which is when we're using it, was $585,000. So you need to build a dwelling that you can sell for around $439,000. 10% of your dwellings in your development must be that. If you're going to do the retained affordability, you would need to sell it to a community housing provider so that they will make sure it's retained as an affordable dwelling forever. And the price point around that works out at about $344,000. So as you can see, there's a few challenges there, but on the whole, there has been some very positive response to doing this and realising that there are many ways to skin a cat. And not all houses have to be 4 or 5 bedrooms. Some can be smaller, or you can just use some very well designed and meet your affordability by making a well designed smaller. dwelling. We also use conditions on consents to reinforce the affordability. We want to make sure that the affordable homes go to those people that most need them, those people that are currently shut out of the housing market. So we ask developers to do a statutory declaration that they're selling that affordable dwelling to a first home buyer, that the first home buyer's income is no more than 120% of the Auckland median income, that they are actually a real person, i.e. they're not an investment trust, and that they're going to live in it for 3 years. So, and that's me finished, and I've got some contact details here if you want to talk to us in the Housing Project Office. We'd welcome your inquiries. I've put Rees and myself. I've also got David Cleland, who's the Growth and Infrastructure Strategy Manager, who looks after the SHA identification phase, and Alan McGregor, the Master Planning Manager, who looks after the master planning phase. Thank you.